Welcome everybody to another episode of Cash and Sport. Today we're back. It's been a little bit of a while since we were here, and we've got two very important guests with us. Over at the top left, the Rose Amongst Thorns, Sinenjabulo Zungu, and beneath that is Manqoba Zungu, both from the Zungu family who run AmaZulu Football Club. And they're here to talk to me today about ABC, AmaZulu Business College, which is an initiative that they started. They spearheaded it. They identified a need. And Manqoba, Sine, thank you so much for availing yourselves for the opportunity and having a chat with us today. How are you guys doing?
We're very good, thank you.
Thank you. All right, great stuff. So let's get straight into it, guys. In South Africa, in general sport, players go through quite a lot. A lot of players find themselves, destitute after their playing years. 60% of NBA players go bankrupt within 5 years. South Africa is not exempt from this. NBA players, 78% reported bankruptcy and financial distress. You guys seem to have identified a need. So how did this idea of ABC come about, AmaZulu Business College? How did that come about, Manqoba?
Sure. No, thanks for having us, Kajeni. When the Zungu family took over the club late last year, in the president's opening kind of press conference, he mentioned Vision 2032.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that by 2032, AmaZulu will be 100 years old, and what we would want to achieve between now and then. One of the things that he spoke about was contribution to nation building. Yeah. One of the things he spoke about was contribution towards making sure that our players are skilled both on and off the field. So as he spoke about that, we then started thinking about how we can then bring that dream and that vision of his to life. And there are many initiatives that AmaZulu are driving, and this was one of the initiatives where we said exactly what you were saying, that we know that if you take a footballer, a rugby player, and a cricketer in South Africa, almost unanimously we know the footballer is going to be the one or that's most likely to be kind of destitute post their career. So we wanted to make sure that anyone that comes through the AmaZulu culture or environment doesn't end up being that statistic. So we started working on it late last year. So it took about 12 months for it to launch, because we wanted to make sure we thoroughly understand the landscape. It's one thing reading about it. It's one thing seeing in the media, but we wanted to make sure we thoroughly understand the landscape, so that when we launch the program, it speaks directly to the needs of the players. So that's why it took us a year to do interviews with the players, with different clubs as well, up until the point where we felt we were ready to launch. So that's kind of how it came about.
Mobile, as Manqoba has mentioned, it is something that affects everybody in football, really, the football fraternity at large. But I think it's important to start at home.
Yeah.
So in identifying the issue that these football players encounter, we decided to start at home and launch the program specifically for our players. Yeah. And it wasn't to say that it's exclusive to them. So these issues are exclusive to them. It's everybody. Yeah. But I think because we're starting the program and we are also trying to find, I suppose, other issues and just see if the program is going to work. Yeah. Decided to start it internally and focus on our football players for the first year of the program. Yeah. I think the issues have been mentioned by Manqoba. It's highly likely that the people in the sporting industry, the people that will probably suffer the most is football players. And I'm not sure whether we can attribute that to the culture of football or just the lack of exposure to certain platforms that they have. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, all right. No, I completely get that. And it's a difficult one to unpack because there's so many different factors. But let's maybe look at a couple of them, right? According to the 2016 FIFPro Global Employment Report, which looks at the global employment of football players in general, 72% of players questioned mentioned that they did not have any education beyond high school. Most players don't have a degree. And I think between the two of you, education is a very big pillar of who you are and of who you are. I mean, you, Sine, you started off at St. Mary's before graduating from UCT with an honors in marketing. And then you went on to complete your MBA at IE Business School in Spain. When Manqoba, we've seen you many times on television, speaking about, for one, Get Ready mentorship program, which you started up. You've also been a guest lecturer at GIBS as well. I mean, you've got the famous story about how you went on TV and spoke about a potential idea that you had in your head, and it turned out to be, this brainwave that people wanted to support. Education is a key pillar, and without education and financial education, these players would struggle. So, Sine, if I can bring this one back to you again, how big a part of this program will player education be? And, what will the player come out with at the end of the program once they go through it? Just take us through the education element of the program.
So I think, let me start here. Let me first just clarify. It's ABC, AmaZulu Business College.
Yeah.
I just AmaZulu Business College. And I think the college part can be a bit misleading at this point.
Yeah.
The idea, though, is to establish an actual business school.
Right.
Where players that go through our ranks, when they leave with some sort of qualification. If whatever NFQ level there is, they leave with something.
Yeah.
At the moment, what we're doing, the program is in a form of, call it seminars or workshops.
Right.
Put. So, and in those workshops, we cover various things. The intention is to cover a lot of different aspects that we feel or that we've identified as problematic to the players, including financial literacy, including literacy. Obviously, that covers a lot of things. It covers investments. It covers savings. We also include things like life skills. We include mental health. We include brand management, all sorts of various things. And that's for the first part of the program. Thereafter, we're going to introduce certain programs that are obviously going to have you with a qualification in partnership with accredited institutions.
Right, excellent. And an additional question to that. How deep does the program go? I think when you launched it, you spoke to staff being involved and players. Does it go all the way down to your junior ranks as well?
Again, because it's a launch, we've just focused on the first team as a launch program. But the idea, and I think it's very important to mention this, that it's better to train them whilst they're still young.
Yeah.
So the idea is to start at development level.
Right.
And AmaZulu development level started age 13.
Right.
So the program is fully running. After a year, we will start at that level. It will obviously look different to what the first team is exposed to. It will be tailored to that age group because I suppose what they experience is different.
And absolutely right. I mean, young players look up to these older players. They read news articles, and the news article would say this guy earns 100,000 Rand a week. Whereas when you get to the actual breakdown of the salary and this add-on bonuses, it doesn't look like that, and it's best for them to know that at the young age so that they know what the expectations are and what their understanding is. And talking about managing expectations, Manqoba, if I could bring this one to you, you've taken the decision to educate these players, right? You guys have partnered with Mazi Capital, but these players, as I said just now, they have expectations of their careers, and one of the issues that could come up is the fact that umuntu wants to live with the Joneses, or should we say with the Zungus, he's not able to as a player, and careers are short. Is part of this, and I'm asking you this one, Manqoba, specifically because of your background in terms of the education element and mentoring and coaching, managing expectations and the black tax element in football, and how players deal with that. Is this part of the curriculum, and how do you guys deal with it currently in terms of just the first team players and getting them to work right in terms of their thinking?
Yeah, no, it's definitely part of it. The reports that you referred to earlier on, if I remember that report correctly, it said that part of the reason why players athletes post their career are destitute was no investments, bad investments, divorce, and fraud. Right?
Yeah.
So these players are, one day they wake up, they ordinary, citizens. Then the next day they can't even walk without people wanting selfies and these things and social media, and they believe that they were right. And there are some, of course, we're generalizing here, not all of them, but their view of themselves, of their self-worth, is all these fluffy things. How many likes, how many followers, the people that want selfies. When you go to wherever, you get given VIP and you feel like you've made it, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to kind of building that generational wealth and investing now, taking the pain now to ensure that in the future you're not going to have any challenges that you face.
Yeah.
So that is something that we speak to them about, and we make sure that they are aware of it. That's why you would have seen that our partnership or our launch was a combination of having the theoretical side, where Mazi Capital and the likes of myself were there speaking on the theoretical side. But then you got the practical side, where you've got the likes of Lucas Katev and OJ Mabizela saying, guys, these are the things that we went through. These are the things that we thought we knew better. And some of them are happy that they are happy with the decisions that they made, and some of them are not happy with the decisions that they made. So we bring them that balance to say, these are the good things, these are the bad things. So Mazi Capital then plays that role from a financial perspective. Investment, savings, tax, and different types of investments. There are investments that you can make now so that at the end of the season you go on holiday, right? So you don't have to spend all of your cash at one go. There are investments that are for the future. There are investments where you buy, assets that will sustain you into the future. So we've got that balance between the practical aspects and the kind of the theoretical aspects. And maybe just to add one last point that they touched on that I'd like to just elaborate on. She mentioned mental health. So imagine this picture that I've painted of this person that was just a nobody or just a general citizen. The next moment you're the superstar for 5-10 years of your career. The next moment you get injured and your career is over, or the club doesn't renew your contract, or whatever the case is, and you haven't made any of these investments that I was talking about, right? Then all of a sudden your car is being repossessed, your fancy house is being repossessed, you can't buy the Gucci's and the Louis Vuittons. You just walk into a mall and people don't even notice you, or they do notice you, but they're speaking under their breath and they're not coming to take a selfie. You can imagine what that does to the psyche of a player mentally, right? Or leave that aside also whilst you play, right? Because there are all these expectations now that I've been given jersey number 10. And you get given this jersey number 10 without anyone explaining what it means or whatever. Now there's this pressure that you must perform week in, week out, right?
Yeah.
Or you're now playing overseas, or now you're playing for a bigger club, or whatever it is, right? There's a lot of pressure in the game that we want to make sure that we nip in the bud as it happens, as opposed to waiting for it to accumulate and then it bursts in a way that we can't control. So that's kind of what the thinking is.
Yeah. For me, the thing that really stood out in the launch, I watched from a distance as we consumed it in the media, was obviously having the former players there was amazing. The Mazi Capital element for me is a big one, because it's taking the actual situation that a player is in and taking them through, okay, so with your particular funds, this is what you could do, this is what you could plan for. Is there a plan with regards to savings vehicles going forward for players? And I ask this question because the PSL currently doesn't have a set minimum wage, or at least it's not been introduced into the league, although it's under discussion. How would we, as an industry, and I'm looking now beyond AmaZulu, because the PSL as a collective has the same problem. How do we, as a PSL, address this issue of player incomes beyond their playing days, or assist them in the here and now to start saving beyond their playing days? Because it's a critical issue, and I don't know. I don't have the answers, and I'm not asking you for the answers, but what your brief thoughts are. Sine, maybe you can take that one over. Yeah.
Can I step in there? I think what you're asking, Mobile, is a very critical question, and I think it's something that we've also asked ourselves. I mean, I'll give you an example, and I don't know if there's been discussions around this issue, or if there have been any discussions where they're at.
Yeah.
But it's I think the same applies to if a player gets injured.
Yeah.
What happens to them? Are there any funds that are there to sustain them? Is there some sort of insurance that's there for the player? Like there is for rugby players, and I think for cricket.
Yeah.
And if I may be honest, I think the football industry, hence I said there's a bit of a different culture.
Yeah.
Simply put, with football. And I think it kind of filters through into a lot of aspects with football. And this is one of them. So I think it is something important, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed, because it comes with a lack of education or exposure, which then affects a player as an individual. So I think as an industry, we need to take a stand. We need to take a stance to say, if you're a football player and you're earning 100K, every month, whether they're obligated to do it or they choose to do it, but let's say you put in a rule as PSL to say that as a player, every month, 2% over and above, right? 2% of your salary goes towards this insurance. So that when you, at the end of your career, are done, at least you're getting, even if it's 10% of what you were getting as a salary every month.
Yeah.
I think it's important, and I think it's something that really ought to be looked at. Whether at PSL at large or clubs individually, but I think it would be more effective if it's EPSL.
It's an industry body, yeah.
Maybe just to add to that, Reka Jenny. Usne mentioned that ultimately we want this to be a fully fledged college, right?
Yeah.
And she mentioned that we started off at home, our players. But ultimately, we want this to be an industry-wide and a South Africa-wide initiative, right? Because you can think of the entertainment industry, they have the exact same issue, right? So when it's a fully fledged college, it's open to other players from other clubs, and it's open to other athletes from other disciplines, and just the general man on the streets. Of course, that's a much longer term goal because, as you said, it's a nation building thing. So it's not just a football industry thing. We've just decided to start, when we teach MBAs, we speak about sphere of influence and sphere of control, right? We decided to start where we've got our sphere of influence and our sphere of control with our players, right?
Yeah.
And already we're seeing other disciplines have already started introducing it. And I won't mention these clubs, but already other people have already started introducing it. And we're fine with that.
Yeah.
Right? Because we can't be the solution to everyone. We just hope they do it just as well as we do, so that the people that kind of are in their courses or in their programs get the benefits that our players are going to get, or that are already getting. And why I say already getting is because you'll be pleased to hear that already some of our players have started investing just after one session.
Yeah,
they've already started investing in property. Some have got Ama backrooms that they're leasing out to students. Some have already spoken to Mazi and they've taken a few unit trusts and so on and so forth. So we can already see the benefits of this. So we just hope that and trust that, this can be replicated, this can become industry-wide, because as you can imagine, if more people are doing this and our football industry and the ecosystem is working and is seen in a good light, then all the beneficiaries of the ecosystem are better off, right? We don't want to have the so-called big clubs and the small clubs. We want, like in the NBA always tries to make sure that all
level
the
playing field,
playing. So that's kind of our dream, that eventually we all want to be on the level playing.
That's beautiful, and I'm really glad to hear it. Sine, this is a bit of a detour from the initial thinking, but I must say, since you guys came in and the work that you've done, the sponsorships that you guys have put in, the stability that the family has brought to AmaZulu as a whole, because everybody knew AmaZulu was a sleeping giant. No disrespect to the Sokulu family prior, but since you guys have come in, you've really hit the heights. And I must say that, man, you're doing an amazing job, Lapana, in the CEO's office, and big ups to you. Two last questions quickly before I wrap this one up. The one is player representation. You guys operate in a field where a player has a middleman between the club and him. Without that middleman being in the buy-in or buying into the idea that you have, that relationship wouldn't work, in terms of filtering the information down. How involved are they in the process? Are they involved in the process at all? And what are your thoughts on that?
Let me first ask this question: involved in which process?
No, in the AmaZulu Business College, or as in like maybe either consulted or were brought into it to say, as part of the education, because we have and this is why I'm asking the question. In rugby, or let's say cricket, there are set specific minimums that an agent must meet in order to qualify as an agent or to operate as an agent, right? Financial education, a minimum law degree, minimum tests that they have to pass every year. In football, that's not the rule. These people also now run careers of athletes. So how do we make sure that they are at that level? Are you bringing them along in this journey, or is it like you all to yourself?
I think you asking very important questions that are, I think without sounding otherwise.
Yeah.
The conversation I had with Manqoba, I think about a week ago, about the involvement of my agents in the careers of the footballers. Because think about it. As an agent, you're representing a footballer, eh?
Yeah.
And so yours is to ensure that when a footballer is assigned or is contracted to AmaZulu for 3 years, yes, they're contracted to the club and they're playing for the club, but it's my duty to take care of them.
Yeah.
And that includes things like organizing them or helping them find individual sponsors or ambassador, whatever.
Yeah.
And let me just say, I haven't seen that happen in football.
Yeah.
Specifically with our players, there's not a lot of players that are well represented by the agents.
Right.
So speaking about ABC, we treat our players as AmaZulu employees.
Yeah.
Once they're within AmaZulu, we treat them as ours, and the communication then, when it's anything outside of the pitch or field, we speak to them directly. So whatever engagements we have regarding marketing, branding, development, it's from us to the player.
Yeah.
If it involves playing football and contracts, then it's the agents and then the player.
Yeah.
And so as ABC is concerned, it's us and the players.
Yeah.
Maybe just to add to that, Mobile, I think as Ness said, it's a good question. And I think that's why she was smiling, because we did touch on this last week when we met, although not directly to your question. I imagine, this is me thinking out aloud, we haven't really discussed this. I imagine that once we're done with the pilot and we are formalizing the program, it's accredited and there are certificates that are going to be, issued to the players. I imagine that the contracts are going to be altered somewhat to say, now as an AmaZulu player, when you are signing on to join AmaZulu, this is part of the requirements that you have to go through the AmaZulu Business College.
Yeah.
And that's also where then the agents are going to be involved, and they're going to be required to make sure that these guys do their homework, do whatever is required. I imagine at that stage, they're probably going to be a bit more involved. Manje, we're still, testing it out and seeing what works, what level to pitch it at, etc. But thanks for the tough question.
I recognize, Guti, I hijacked you guys there, but because it wasn't in the planning, it just came up in my mind as I was thinking, as we were talking right now. But thank you so much for answering that one. Sine, you were about to say something?
No, I was reiterating what Manqoba was saying, that I think when it gets to a stage where it touches on your contract, then you're almost obligated to involve them. And I think it's a way to involve them because, like I said, there are representatives for my players. And if you ask me, they should be getting way more involved than they currently are.
Yeah. The last question, guys, before we wrap it up, and thank you so much for your time once again. Unjano Ote Mbulelo, how's he doing? Is he okay? Are you guys taking care of him there, KwaZulu? Is he part of this thing? Like, what's going on? Is he there? How is he doing? He's a darling to South Africans. So, I have to ask.
No, right, Mbulele. I think without fear of contradiction, I can say that his talk at the launch touched everyone's heart. Even Upra Lucas Katebe was close to it. And I say this with no fear of contradiction because Upra Lucas said this himself.
Yeah.
We know OJ's story in the media, right? But we don't know his story.
Yeah.
And when you listen to his story, you admire the guy even more.
Yeah.
So it's easy to look at the negatives and focus on the negatives. But when you listen to his whole story, his upbringing, the decision-making patterns, his thought processes, and the things that he was doing, why he was doing them, you really get to admire the gen. So we certainly will be working closely with OJ going forward.
Yeah.
He's in a really good space. He's not the negative OJ that people see. But I can't reveal too much. Just watch the space. But we definitely will be working with them going forward on a lot of initiatives.
Hey, I'm just happy to hear that he's safe. He's in a good space. He's growing, and he's surrounded by people who are ambitious and looking to make this thing, flourish. So I can only imagine him flourishing as well. And I'm grateful. I think on behalf of football fans in general, thank you so much for what you guys are doing. And lastly, thank you so much for availing yourself. AmaZulu Business College is an amazing project. For me, I just thought, when I saw it, I thought, this is exactly what South African sports needs. And in KZN, because you guys across the road at the Sharks are also doing similar things, doing amazing things, there's amazing things going on in KZN Sport, and I can just applaud and just say, guys, please continue. Well done. Thank you so much for giving me the platform, and long may it continue. No,
thanks for having us. Thanks for having us, and as you say, Konabantu who are now doing these things, I realize that you're really good at research, so I'm sure you'll be able to see the dates of the different launches, so you know who was the first to march.
Yes, exactly. It must be said loud and proud. AmaZulu put it first, and the rest will follow.
We want to own this. We worked hard for this.
No, absolutely. You have to own it. Guys, thank you so much for your time. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching our conversation with Sinenjabulo Zungu and Manqoba Zungu from AmaZulu Football Club. They talked a lot about the well-being of players, the situation in AmaZulu, and how they're trying to change that. Hopefully, their plans and their ambitions come true, and they come to fruition, and they manage to get these players to a higher level in terms of investing and making sure that their futures are secure. In terms of the league itself, hopefully a minimum wage will come through at some point, and we'll have a savings vehicle as well at some point, which allows players to save for the future, man, so that we can see less and less of these issues coming up. Lastly, I'm glad that they're taking care of Mbulelo Mabizela. Old John was a great servant to South African football, a darling to South African football. People love him. He's got an unfortunate story in terms of what happened post his playing career and his troubles and so on and so on. But I trust, and I'm very sure that they will take care of him and make sure that he's happy, healthy, and has something to live for at the moment, which I'm glad for. But thank you so much for watching to the end. If you've gotten to this point, hopefully we'll have a couple more of these videos, maybe before the end of the year, maybe 1 or 2 more. But next year, we should be ramping up, getting a few more of these administrative conversations going in the background, in the business and the meat around sports business in this country. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there. Cheers.